Hello, today I am teaching to you in class 8 science chapter 2nd, which is microorganisms. Friend and foe, the chapter name. In last class I taught you about the some diseases which are caused in human beings, animals and plants because of the growth of microorganisms. So today also some microorganisms are effective for making some diseases which are related to food. For example, if the food is not covered properly, it gets spoiled by the action of some microorganisms like bacteria and fungi, and these microorganisms grow on the food after passage of time, and they produce some toxic substances, harmful substances on the food. And when we eat the food, it will lead to some problem in our body, and it is called food poisoning. Means if the food is left for a more period of time or for a long period of time, some bacteria and fungi falls on it and they grow after passage of time, and they spoil the food, and it becomes harmful for us, and this is called food poisoning. Food poisoning means after certain period of time the food gets spoiled due to the growth of some bacteria and fungi on the food if we not stored the food properly or preserved it properly, and this food is harmful for us. And what are the effects on the food? This is called food poisoning. Food poisoning, in a straight way we can define this: the disease caused by or due to the presence of large number of microorganisms. Means microorganisms grow on the food when the food left or not covered properly. Mostly bacteria and fungi grow on the food. Bacteria and fungi grow on the food or due to the presence of toxic substances, because these fungi or bacteria produces some toxic substances. So we can also say due to the presence of some toxic substances in food formed by the action of microorganisms. These toxic substances, how they are formed? They are formed by the action of microorganisms. It is called food poisoning. In simple way, we can say that the disease which is caused by the presence of toxic substances which are formed by the microorganisms is called, this disease is called food poisoning. And some major symptoms of food poisoning are, what are the symptoms shown when a person get affected by the food poisoning? Or we can say that when a person eat a foul food or spoiled food, what are the symptoms shown here? The person maybe shows the symptom vomiting, diarrhea, maybe get affected by the diarrhea, or it may be pain in abdomen, stomach, abdomen, and also it may be headache, and maybe fever also. These are the some common symptoms which are generally occurs when a person affected by the food poisoning. It may also sometimes causes some serious illness or even may death can also be occurs. Some of the common examples of bacteria which causes food poisoning are commonly two bacteria cause food poisoning are Salmonella, Salmonella bacteria And another bacteria is Clostridium botulinum. Clostridium, this is the name of the bacteria, Clostridium and botulinum. These two bacteria mainly causes food poisoning. Means when these bacteria found on the food, they spoil the food and leads to food poisoning in a person when they eat the food. Salmonella bacteria and Clostridium bacteria, these are the two bacteria which are responsible for causing food poisoning. And one of the most common fungus is also responsible for the food poisoning is fungus also causes food poisoning commonly is the name of the fungus is Aspergillus. This fungus is a fungus. This also spoil the food and it leads to food poisoning in a person when they eat the food or spoiled food. Aspergillus, here two bacteria name is important for your information or according to your class syllabus. Salmonella bacteria and Clostridium botulinum bacteria, these are the two bacteria commonly spoil the food and they cause food poisoning. And one fungus commonly Aspergillus which causes food poisoning and we can say spoil the food. So all of you know that food is a very precious material. What is food? We talk about the food. It is a very precious material. So there is need to some techniques or adapt to some techniques to preserve the food. There is need to use or adopt some techniques or methods to preserve the food. So here we describe about some methods or techniques which are helpful in preserving the food. So, next topic is methods or techniques for preserving the food. One of the simple method is sun drying. Sun drying means we can also say that this is dehydration. Dehydration means removal of water water from the food. The vegetables like spinach, we can also say that palak, methi leaves, cauliflower, peas, etc. They have moisture, or it contains a lot of water content inside it. We may reduces the water content of the food material and make them dry. These dry vegetables can be stored safely for a long time, and when we require, we may use the vegetables. So we can say that sun drying or dehydration method or technique is a very simple technique. Only we need to remove the water from the moisture content food while putting the food in the sunlight. They easily dehydrate, and it is useful for a long period of time. Another technique is preservation of food by heating. We can preserve the food by heating the food. So we can say that preservation of food by heating. All of you know that when we boil the food, it kills the many microorganisms, and hence we can easily prevent the food from its spoilage. Louis Pasteur discovered a technique that is called pasteurization of milk. Pasteurization of milk means heat the milk at a very high temperature, or boil the milk at a very high temperature and quickly cool it. When he boil the milk at high temperature, what bacteria or microorganism present in the milk, they are killed and quickly cool the milk there, and hence the milk is preserved for 2 or 3 days easily. And we can also use it without again heating the milk easily, because the pasteurized milk is free from the microorganism. So we can also preserve the food by heating it, because when we heat the food, it kills the many microorganisms what are present or may be present in the given food, and hence we can prevent the food from spoilage. Another technique is preservation of food by cooling. Preservation of food, we can also preserve the food by cooling or refrigeration. You can also say that refrigeration, because at a very low temperature or cold temperature, the growth of microorganisms are inhibited. Inhibited means protected. The very low temperature inhibits the growth of microorganisms, and hence our food is prevent from its spoilage. Some food like milk need flour, that is called duff milk, for example duff. Cooked food like pulses, fresh food, vegetables are kept in a cool place like refrigerator, and we can prevent their spoilage. Vegetables, etc. Next technique is we can also preserve the food by deep freezing. So we can say that preservation of food by deep freezing. Deep freezing method is used for the preservation of food like meat, fish, fruits and vegetables. Why? Because these food are commonly spoiled by the some microorganisms, growth of some microorganisms, and there is need to frozen the food in a deep freezer, and hence we may kept fresh even for a month. At deep freezing, the growth of food spoiling microorganism is prevented completely. So we can also preserve the food by deep freezing. Food also may be preserved by using common salt. So we can say that preservation of food by common salt. Common salt means the salt we use in our daily food item, that is called common salt. The formula of the salt is NaCl. This is the chemical formula of the food, and name of the common salt is sodium chloride. It is the chemical name of the common salt, and this is called chemical formula of the common salt. Na capital, A small, C capital, L small. This is sodium, this is chlorine, and collectively it is a compound. The name of the compound is sodium chloride. This common salt also may preserve the food because it prevents the growth of food poisoning microorganisms. This common salt, it may also prevent the growth of food poisoning microorganisms. So we can also use in some food like pickles, to preserve the food. Next method is preservation of food can also be done by using sugar in it. So preservation of food can be done by using sugar. All of you know that sugar is used as a preservative in making jams, pickles, etc. It reduces the moisture content from the fruits. It reduces the moisture content from the fruits, and if the moisture content means water content is removed from the food, which inhibits means prevent, inhibits the growth of microorganisms like bacteria which spoil the foods. Microorganisms like bacteria which spoil the food, and hence we can also preserve the food by using sugar in it. The fruits which are preserved in the form of jams and jellies, by using sugar as a preservative, mostly these are fruits like apple, ripe mango, orange, strawberry, pineapple, guava, etc. The next method is we can also preserve the food by using mustard oil and vinegar. How vinegar is prepared already I told about this in my earlier lectures. So here preservation of food may also be done by using mustard oil and vinegar. Vinegar means sirka. In Hindi we call it sirka. Mustard oil and vinegar, they are commonly used as a preservative for the preservation of fruits and vegetables. Mostly they are used to preserve the pickles. And why? Because mustard oil and vinegar, they prevents the spoilage of fruits and vegetables. And due to the use of this mustard oil and vinegar, microorganisms like bacteria cannot survive in such an environment, in such materials. So these are also used as a preservative for preserving food, fruits or pickles, because mustard oil and vinegar, microorganisms cannot survive or cannot live. So this is mainly used for preserving the fruits and pickles. Some special chemicals are also used to preserve the food, like sodium metabisulfite, sodium benzoate. These are the common chemicals which are used for the preserving the food for a longer time. So our next technique is preservation of food by using special chemicals as preservative. Some common chemicals are which are used for preservative: sodium metabisulfite, sodium metabisulfite, sodium benzoate, these are the chemical substance. And another one is citric acid. These are the common chemical substances which are used for preserving the fruit or food. These two, sodium metabisulfite and sodium benzoate, are used for preserving the food like jams, jellies, juices and squashes. And this citric acid is used for preserving the confectionery items. Citric acid is used for mainly confectionery items like sweets. Next technique, you can also preserve the food by using pasteurization, which is I already talked about the heating method. So preservation of food can also be done by pasteurization. This technique is given by or invented by the Louis Pasteur. Pasteurization method. In this method, the milk is first heated to about a 70-degree temperature for a 15 to 30 seconds, and when we heat the milk at this temperature, what microorganisms are present in the milk? They are killed, and suddenly it cools down to a low temperature, and hence we prevent any remaining bacteria from growing further. So in this technique we can also preserve the food. Food also be preserved by packing the food in airtight packets. So we can say that preservation of food by packing in airtight packets. Some food like dry fruits, even vegetables which are sold in the sealed or airtight packets, it prevents the attack of microorganisms on them, and hence this helps the dry fruits and vegetables to remain unspoiled for a longer time. Then, like chips, dry fruits, these are preserved by packing in a airtight packets, because when you pack the food items in airtight packets, it prevents the attack of the microorganisms on them, and hence in this way the airtight packing helps the food to remain unspoiled for a longer time. Okay, thank you. In next class I teach about the nitrogen fixation or nitrogen cycle, which is a very important topic of this chapter. Thank you.